Hi, I'm Ryan Boyd of Wakefield Community Access Television, and I'm joined today by Doug Dry, pastor at First Baptist Church here in Wakefield. And we're here to discuss his vision on men helping each other with the basic issues of life. So first, I want to say welcome,
Great.
Doug. It's really good to see you.
Thank you, Ryan. It's always good to be here in the studio. It's always good to hang out with you. And it's funny, as we were preparing for this, we were trying to think of, well, what is the name of what we're doing? And so I have some initial drafts, but it is definitely a work in progress. And so kind of that vision is thinking of men walking alongside each other, side by side, kind of spurring each other on, encouraging each other, challenging each other, so that no one has to walk alone. And it's a tragic epidemic, really, in our culture, and I think it affects many, many people. I mean, we see it, coming out of COVID, certainly with students, affects women, but I think men as well are even more susceptible to kind of hunkering down, isolating, and just sort of plowing through life by themselves. Some of them are making it well, but I think many may be struggling a bit or would like some help and some guidance and just learning from other guys who are trying to work through the same things.
Yeah, I absolutely. And I think it's probably important to note that, like you said, this is not a gender-specific issue or,
That's right.
or anything. Everyone of every walk of life can struggle with this sort of thing. But I do think that growing up, I was born in the 80s, so growing up, in the 90s and everything, it was just, you wonder what it was like to be able to reach out and have these discussions with people, I grew up with an older brother who, it was always kind of, you're picking on each other, I'm tougher than you are, and, you kind of learned to just suck it up, for lack of a better word, to just deal with whatever was coming your way. And, I think a lot of people probably do struggle with the ability to reach out to trusted folks and be able to talk about those things that are below the surface. We can always talk about the weather or what sports teams we like or the basics, how the family is doing, but what if there's a real issue at play, and do you have that person or those people you feel like you can really talk to and help with the issues that you're going through?
Right. And especially because those kind of things they don't just come up on like, okay, the second Monday of the month, this is when I'm going to have this issue with my wife or my kids on Saturdays. Now sometimes it is always like on Saturdays, that could be a problem. What do we do with these kids? But they just kind of come, and if let's say our reservoir of maybe it's knowledge, experience, or just emotional energy, if it's really low, then oftentimes we don't necessarily act in the way that we'd want to. I think as guys, we either engage in overbearing, we're going to like fix this thing, or a lot of times, guys, I think we just really retreat, and sort of you could say the passive American male that just sort of sucks in, goes into a cave. Maybe the man cave is like the little thing, pops on the TV and just sort of tunes out while, all hell is breaking loose, in other places of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so much of these things are found within either your family or whatever your kind of nucleus is, right? So,
That's right.
If you've got a great relationship with your spouse or partner and you can trust in them and really have those deep discussions, I think that helps relieve a lot that energy that you're talking about. But what if you don't have that?
Right.
What if
Or they're
where
the ones that you have the conflict with.
Yeah.
And that's like, that was my go-to, and now that's where the issue is.
No, absolutely. That can definitely be a possibility. And I think that's where you find things like, there's therapy out there, of course.
Yep, that's right.
There are either maybe it's church groups, maybe it's community groups or something of the sort. But yeah, I do think that there is a need out there for people to have a space where they know they can open up, where they can talk about issues that are bothering them and feel as though they're not going to be judged by it. They're not going to be, it's okay to not be the tough guy. And, it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think that's a key word for me, is vulnerability. So often you don't want to be. You don't want that to happen, but no one's immune.
And it's funny with vulnerability is we're good at being like, we choose what we want to be vulnerable with. We think we're being vulnerable. We share this because this is like a safe thing. So maybe with you, there's something I feel safe with, but I'm not really sharing. I'm not really being vulnerable.
Sure.
Truly, I'm not being transparent in a sense. And I think when guys are connected with each other, and in many different ways, it could be through sports, it can be through recreation, it can be through just hanging out or doing yard work together. So there's all sorts of vehicles to do that. Then you're more likely to just say, or maybe I noticed something. Say, Ryan, you seem, a little off today, or what's going on? I just saw lot of activity over your house there, and is everything okay?
Right.
And then more likely when there is that relationship, well, then you're more likely to open up a little bit more on those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tell me a bit about your vision here, what you're trying to create, and what you're hoping that if folks hear this, they feel like they can relate to.
Yep. And in this first podcast here, just trying to kind of lay a foundation for what is the need and what could that look like. And I ran across an article, I think it was in the Boston Globe, at least it was online. So I don't know if it was in the op-ed piece, but it was talking about loneliness. And these were stats that I haven't verified, I haven't fact-checked these stats, but they sound bad. That loneliness leads to a 29% higher risk of developing heart disease, 32% higher risk of having a stroke, 50% higher risk of developing dementia. And it says loneliness is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
I don't know how you exactly measure that, but wow. So if that, I think it was called, the article was something like Epidemic of Americans Alone in a Crowd. And it had a great image of like a group of people or images, all of one color, and then one that was just different and just sort of stood out.
Yeah.
And so the fact that person is alone, even though they're surrounded by all sorts of people, you don't have to be a homebound, shut-in type person. So how do we foster, and what can I do to be a catalyst for fostering connections among men? And not just in general, but also with a purpose to say, let's try to be better. And I know that can sound like, okay, it's like one more thing I got to do. But sometimes being better is just a matter of just being available, just being aware of serving another person. Sometimes that just getting outside of yourself is a way that you sort of heal yourself as you are a friend,
Absolutely.
to somebody else.
I'll be honest. So when I was in college is when Hurricane Katrina hit. Quick little story. I was down in North Carolina for school. I didn't know anybody. I was in a very lonely place. I just broken up with someone. It was just you do feel like you're kind of in that crowded room, but no one sees you. You don't.
Right.
No one gets what you're going through.
Right.
And I remember. So the hurricane hit, and of course the devastation it caused. And then my school had a service trip over the winter break. If you wanted for 2 weeks, you could sign up, go down, and just help clean up houses, talk to people, do that sort of thing. And I remember I went down to do it, and I don't think I've to this day felt as fulfilled or good about doing something than when I was doing that. It was the service of doing it. It was just, you saw in people's eyes what it meant to them for you to just come down and shovel out mud from their houses and clean up debris and things like that. And so when you're saying a service as a way of connecting with people, I mean, I made friends from that trip that have lasted throughout, you know?
Yeah.
And it really, there is something to it, to whether it's a smaller service where you're, doing something in your own community or going out somewhere else to help people. There is something to that really serves a purpose for a person. It can kind of reignite that light in their hearts for it.
Right. It's like one of those ironies that the more you try to suck into yourself and be fulfilled, it just it's like sand going through your hands.
Absolutely.
And the more you open up your hands and give towards other people, the more you actually are filled.
It's really interesting. I mean, honestly, and sure, studies that have been done a million times over, but having lived through a little bit of it myself for that, from that perspective, it has changed the way I view other things. If I find myself in a lonely place now, I do try to reach out what's happening in my community that I can go be a part of, or I can go try to help
Right,
with,
right.
because I think that it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter what your life is like. I think we have all been in that dark place. We've all been in that spot where you don't know what to do or who to talk to or who to reach out to.
Right, right.
And, to be able to have a resource, whether it's a group like you're discussing, to create or something of the sort like that, it can make such a difference in a person's life. And
Yeah.
I think that if people are more aware of it, people are willing to give it a try, I think they'd see how much of a difference it can
Yeah.
make for them.
Yeah, and even just the sense of things that are multi-generational as well. I mean, I think back of like growing up, there were coaches
Yeah.
in my life that they made a difference. There was some character things that they kind of communicated. There was hard work, discipline that I learned from them.
Yeah.
I think of a young couple, but primarily the guy who kind of modeled for me a kind of a radical lifestyle. When I was in college, they were out of college, but they were investing their lives in like high school kids and really mentoring them. And I saw that they kind of lived on what seemed like nothing. I mean, like total, like living on faith. I mean, they lived in
Yeah.
this little tiny apartment, but they just poured into other people. And I'll never forget them and just think, wow, I want to be like that.
They're probably two of the happiest people you've ever met.
I know. It was awesome. It was awesome. And not easy, it's not necessarily easy. There was even a guy that when I was growing up, that was an IBM physicist. So I had no connection, in that sense. But he had another high school guy and I over like once a week on a Sunday afternoon and just kind of hung out and built some foundational truths into our life. And
That's awesome.
just a great example. So, kind of with that foundation, over the years, I've kind of either been part of or tried to initiate groups of men getting together to kind of discuss some of the basic issues of life. Things like, marriage and family and career and God and what are the, what does my life, count, and how do I deal with failure? How do I deal with success? How do I deal with things like anger and lust and
Right.
It's been everywhere from meeting in someone's basement at like 5:30 in the morning, and I remember one of these first groups where this guy is in Phil Smith's basement, and his wife Becky would call us the Water Buffaloes with Phil, myself, and this other guy Jay and Marin. And kind of from the Flintstones reference, that sort of dates me in terms of that, where they would have I think Fred and Barney went to the lodge, and they were the Water Buffaloes. Well, we didn't wear hats, and we didn't, so she just teased us of like, I don't know what you guys are doing down there. But, we just talked, what's happened in the week. And then we did pray together. And so some groups have had that component. Other groups haven't always had that component. But we've met in Starbucks, we've met in diners, we've met, all sorts of places. We've literally walked. We've had walking groups. So part of that is just seeing the value that I've experienced. And so as I'm newer to town here, and maybe those things are existing around here, I haven't found them, but this is not about just like a church or churches. This is really about the broader men of the community. How can I be a catalyst to help bring men together, where we learn from each other, and I think that strengthens homes. I think that strengthens a community when there's a sense of purpose and direction for some of the men that are in the community.
And I think something like this too, if somebody is going through something, and maybe it's something they're not even realizing they're struggling with.
Yeah.
But maybe they have a few too many drinks every now and then, or like maybe it's just something where there's a bit of a struggle there. And they need, other people to help them realize that, or help them sort of identify what's going on in their lives that are maybe causing some of these other habits or issues that are happening. You know? And I mean, there's plenty of walking trails or outdoor activities or sports, like you said, things that you could do that will, on the surface, unite folks to work together. But I think within those activities, you find the abilities to then talk about more. You
right.
talk about, this one time this happened, or I went through this, and people can relate to that. You know?
Right. No, it's good. And I think in our community, like I think we have some good resources for people who, let's say, are in recovery. So I know I walk by First Parish all the time, and that parking lot is just packed with people who are really taking steps in recovery. I know we have the home there on Main Street, and the name is slipping my mind. But as far as a place for like a safe halfway house for guys,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. But then between that and really thriving in life, I think there's a big space.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm kind of looking at, that in between space of guys that maybe are drifting a bit, or they're doing well, but they could really be doing a lot better. And how do we help make that happen?
Sure.
And what can I do to be a part of that? So that's why, we're doing this podcast, want to kind of get the word out and then see where we can gain some traction.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a way to reach out again. Yeah, like kind of like you're saying, and figure out what do people want to talk about. What do they want? What do they want to do?
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
maybe it's if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Situation.
That's right.
They'll
Right.
fill the dreams.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, it can't hurt to try to put a group together, try to invite some folks around, and just start having discussions, open and honest discussions, even
Right.
about what topics they want to tackle.
That's right. So just in wrapping up here, I had thought of sort of 3 S's. As someone who speaks, you always got to alliterate different things, right? So people can even remember. So, one component is even study. That I think it's good to have things that input into our lives that we wrestle with. We may decide I don't like that, or that wow, that really resonates with me. There's truth there. So I think that it's good to get men together to actually think through and be stretched, intellectually, but also not just in our mind, but all right, now how does that apply, really putting it into practice. So that would be I'm calling them side-by-side groups, which we're going to talk about in our next episode.
Perfect.
More specifics. But that would be one piece. Another piece was what we talked about is service. What are ways where men can, it could be almost a once-in-a-lifetime trip, like to, Katrina, to, help with the victims there, or, just thinking of the fires in Hawaii and in Lahaina, and just, at this point, there's no opportunities, I don't think, but those kind of disaster things. I remember when Superstorm Sandy hit, we were living in Connecticut, and so there was opportunities to go down there to Long Island in that area because of the devastation. So service, and then the last one is even, I just said sports. I love sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which just sort of stands for recreation. It's just, I think, guys doing stuff together. And, I think there are a lot of those things that are happening. So maybe that's covered, but other guys that aren't connected, maybe they're not the top softball player anymore, or baseball, or that maybe they're not a skier, or maybe they like pickleball. I've just started playing pickleball.
I have heard amazing things.
You haven't done it yet? Okay, maybe we'll have to go out before our next time.
I would love to.
And my daughter just bought my wife and I little rackets, and we just had a little match against her and her fiance, and we got thumped. But anyway, it's kind of fun, and it's again that sort of camaraderie and not too serious in terms of the competition.
I mean, I mentioned this to you earlier, but I always joke about fantasy football season is upon us,
right?
Here, right? So
it's
like this is the 5 to 6 months of my year where everyone's on the text thread talking about your players, or want to make a trade, or what do you think about this player or that player, and it's like the friendships just like are solid during that time because you have this thing that you all are interested in, and you keep in touch with it and with each other, and so it can help out a lot.
That's right. There's your recreation. There's your sports right there. Well, very good. Well, thanks, Ryan, for giving me a chance to kind of talk about this kind of vision, passion that I have got, and we'll see you next time when we go into some more details.
Perfect. See you soon.
See you soon.